ministries. And once upon a time, a politician is one big name behind this clamor. Reverend Okotie believed the present constitution is flawed and cannot lead the nation out of the present economic and political logjam. He is advocating a concept he calls Aboriginal democracy, which in any way is not different from what we have now. Reverend Okotie is our guest on Jigsaw today. He will join us from Lagos shortly.
Good afternoon. My name is Benga Arieba, and it's time for today's program. As we had there, we have a very special guest on the program today, joining us all the way from Lagos. My pleasure to welcome formally Reverend Chris Okotie, the founder, Household of God Church International Ministries, as well as founder, Fresh Democratic Party. But then we can't begin to talk of Fresh Democratic Party now because it is being proscribed by INEC. But let's welcome you, sir. Good afternoon. Good to see you, sir.
Thank you. Good to be on the program. Thank you.
Let's start from there. What has happened to your political career, sir? For somebody who has run for the presidency of Nigeria 3 times, I think, from 2003. You ran in 2003. I think you ran in 2007 as well. And then I think 2011. So what has happened to that political career that seems to be probably on a steady rise?
Well, it's very obvious that I was not looking for a position in government, because if I wanted to, then I would have joined the dominant parties. But I was looking for a podium, if you would, a tribune from which to begin to articulate philosophies that would augur well for the unity of our nation. Because I recognize that the entire system was faulty ab initio. And that's why I'm saying that we should suspend the remainder of the elections, or the preparations to the elections, until we have dealt with certain fundamental issues. That's why I'm proposing an interim government as the mechanical instrumentality for the crystallization of the Nigeria of our dreams. And so it is still part of that desire to prosecute a philosophy that will bring Nigeria to a place of unity and coherence.
So you are advocating an interim national government. Is it that it's convenient for somebody like you to make such a proposal? First, you are not an active player in the present political dispensation. You are also not likely to be an active player in the dispensation that will unfold from 2023, because you don't have a political platform. You are not one of those that have emerged for any position that will be voted for in 2023. Are those the convenient reasons why it's easy for somebody like you to just say, let's put a hold to what we have now, let's have an interim national government in place?
Not at all. I'm a patriot. Like I mentioned earlier, if I was looking for a political career since 2003, I would have been in the hierarchy of governance or government by now. But I always knew that this whole concept of a presidential system was going to take us nowhere. It is a journey in futility. It's a Sisyphean quest. It has balkanized our people. It has polarized our system. It has elevated corruption to an institution of Byzantine complexity. And that's why I'm saying that it must be jettisoned from the boat of national progress. If we are going to remain a nation, we must begin to think about ways and means of bringing our people together. Because the situation in the country today requires patriots to come together to provide solutions that will lead to the establishment of Nigeria as a corporate entity in the future. And that's why I'm saying what I'm saying. But of course, there will be skeptics and those who are men of low intellectual estate who imagine that the reason why I'm saying what I'm saying is so that I can become relevant. If President Buhari had run on the platform of Fresh Democratic Party, there's no way he would have won the elections, because the Fresh Democratic Party was still very nascent and in its inchoate stages, to be compared to gigantic, humongous political parties like PDP and APC, whose tentacles pervade the longitudes and the latitudes of our political spectrum. So this is a clarion call for our people to wake up to the realization that there is hope.
If we abolish what we have now and follow your suggestions and put up a national interim government, how is it going to pan out? How do we what's the composition of this national interim government? Under what constitutional arrangement would we bring it about, and what would be the form of that government?
All right, what I'm advocating is what I call aboriginal democracy, because the democracy that we have today has been hijacked by partisanism. So instead of having a government of the people, by the people, for the people, we have government of the party, by the party, for the party. That in itself is a deactivation of democracy. It is a fake verisimilitude. So aboriginal democracy, which is what I'm advocating, will take Nigeria back to a place of true democracy, which will be governments from the people, for the people, with the people. Because in the definition of democracy, there is no concept of political parties. Political parties are an expedient, and what I would say, some creation, some consummate political artifice. It is an expedient that the rich people brought to bear upon the system so that they can continue to perpetuate themselves in positions of authority. I'm saying here that the result of the presidential system is very clear, it's very glaring, and our nation is at the cusp of disintegration, and we must do something. What is necessary is for the House of Assembly and the President to be in cahoots concerning what I'm advocating. And they can establish laws that will bring us to a place of an interim government where we can deal with the fundamental aberrations, not only in the Constitution, but in the practical demonstration of the presidential system of government that has become inimical and subversive to the Nigerian cause.
Beyond the interplay of words, I have not seen anything significantly different from what we are practicing now. The concept of aboriginal democracy that you are advocating, I haven't seen anything significantly different. Save for the interplay of words. You said just is the aboriginal democracy you are advocating, you said should be government from the people. Now, how is that different from government by the people? Which democracy is?
Okay. Yes. In aboriginal democracy, the first thing we're going to do is eliminate the legislature. When you eliminate the legislature, it becomes necessary to also eliminate political parties. Because what does the legislature do? It enacts laws. How does it do it? Through committees. There are 57 standing committees in the Senate and about 89 standing committees in the House of Reps. Now, these committees are only replicating what is already in the polity. We have professional associations that are already in the polity who do what the House of Assembly is doing or duplicating. For instance, we have lawyers banding with lawyers, we have doctors banding with doctors, we have market women banding with market women in what I call the concept of gregarious socialization. They have ties of professional consanguinity and establish an organic nexus by way of enterprise and endeavor. They have been in this polity before these political parties that we're talking about today. And therefore, if we give them the power to enact laws, it will save us, number one, all of the billions of naira that we're spending on a structure that is already within the polity. Number two, it will bring democracy closer to the people, because instead of the people being represented by other people, they will be representing themselves. I can say with responsibility that there are many people in the House of Assembly who do not understand the dialectics or even the dynamics of the laws that they want to perform. If you want to establish a law concerning healthcare, you go to the Nigerian Medical Association that was established in 1951 and has been in the polity longer than these external political parties that we're talking about today. But politicians who are more interested in self-aggrandizement instead of national sentiments would definitely oppose it. But if you're a patriot, you know that I speak the truth, that we can develop our system of governance to such a point that is in consonance with our cultural sensibilities. And that's all I'm saying, that if we do that, if we give power and to these organizations, then we don't need the House of Assembly. Then we don't need political parties. Then we don't need governors. We don't need commissioners. We don't need ministers, because these are just political appointees. And the structure of the civil service has been in place longer than these political appointees. And that's what we must do now if we're interested in keeping Nigeria together. And that is what aboriginal democracy will introduce to the polity.
Reverend, the more you talk about this aboriginal democracy, the more confused I get. First of all, now you just said we will need the National Assembly. And a lot of people will tell you, sir, and I'm sure you also know, that the engine room of democracy anywhere is the parliament, which is why it's called the Parliament of the People, representational. All of these different associations and professional groups that you talked about, almost all of them are represented in the National Assembly, which is why when you have the National Assembly composed, they run through different committees. If you set up a committee on health, for instance, chances are probably 100% of the time that the chairman of the National Assembly or Senate Committee, for instance, on health, will be a doctor or somebody along that line. The chairman of the Senate Committee on maybe banking will probably be an economist or somebody who had a stint in the banking sector. So in a way, all of the interests of these professional associations that you talked about are aggregated in the National Assembly. Now you want the National Assembly abrogated, and in place of it, you want what I probably will see as a house of Babel, associations just functioning on their own, even though you have not told us how they are going to function, whether there will be any central coordinating body or everybody.
I'm not hearing you too clearly, but I imagine I can't hear you too clearly. Sound is not as clear, but I think I have an idea of what you're saying. Here's what I'm proposing. See, we are overwhelmed by a fatalistic limit spirit. The fact that America introduced a concept does not mean it must have universal acceptance. We must understand that we are unique people, and that certain aspects of governance are an affront to our cultural sensibilities. Number two, we do not even have the political conscience to practice that kind of democracy. See, that's why I'm saying that when you look at the practice of the presidential system in the past, in how many years that it's been introduced, you would find aberrations. You would find that it has elevated corruption and created a stratified society where corruption has pervaded the entire system by osmosis. And what I'm saying is that as an intelligent people, we must not continue to mimic a concept when we can create ours for ourselves, particularly in the millennium where the quest for innovation and harmony moves the frontiers. So what I'm saying here is that we need to tailor our democracy to suit our cultural realities. That's what I'm saying. It will still be a tripartite system of governance where you have the judiciary, the executive, and the legislature, but the legislature will be redacted, will be edited out of that concept. And the professional organizations that have been with us will take that responsibility. Let me explain something about democracy. Democracy does not mean that you have to vote. It doesn't. It just means there's got to be acquiescence. For instance, when President Buhari won in 2019, he pulled just over 15 million votes. A lot of people didn't vote, but yet he became president. Why? Because there is an acquiescence. There's an understanding that whoever has the highest number of votes becomes the head of state. And not because everybody has to vote. We just have to agree that this is how we want to organize our system. And I'm saying that the Nigerian experience is such that we have come to that point where we need to reorganize ourselves as touching these systems that we have borrowed. That's what I'm saying. So we're not saying that there will not be the capacity for people to make laws. We're saying give that responsibility to organizations that are closer to the people, instead of this elitist club. And I speak, respectfully within the confines of professional, propriety. conventional propriety or even normative civility. What I'm saying is that when the system has failed you, you get into a surgical theater and you try to fix it. You try to fix it. This system has failed us. I began by telling you it has polarized the polity. It has balkanized the Nigerian society. It has fractured the whole confederacy of the Nigerian brotherhood. It has played the card of ethnicity and religion and caused a disintegration in our society. And we must do something about it while we still have the time.
I understand what I would call the frustration that a lot of us have with democracy the way we have practiced it, particularly so that because it has not delivered much gains into the hands of the people. But then, even in spite of this frustration, shouldn't we work on something that is practicable? I'm at a loss as to how practicable this would be, for instance, because democracy is not just about laws. If you look at the National Assembly, it's also about policies and implementations. So who evolves policies and who implements those policies? Certainly it will not be those same professional associations and bodies.
Let me go back to the definition. When we say the word democracy, it's become some kind of a political leitmotif, because people don't really know what that word means. In studying the word, you got to understand the philology and the etymology of that word. When you look at the word democracy, it derives from the Greek word demokratia, which speaks of demos, people, and the word kratos, which speaks of power. There are several words in the Greek that are translated power. You have dunamis, you have energeia, you have ischus, you have exousia, but the Greeks chose the word kratos because it speaks of visible power. So when you talk about democracy, it's people power, visible power, not partisanism, which is what ours has become. And that's what I'm talking about. Now, the concept of policy making and all those are all intertwined in governance. But I'm saying that there have been several aberrations in the practical materialization of this democratic process. And we must correct them. That's what I'm saying. See, so if they're saying we're going to practice democracy, then understand that the first thing that they must relate to is the people and how they have chosen to be governed. That's the most important thing, not a philosophical concept that is not in touch with reality. Because we have all kinds of people within the system, I call them proselytes of the gate of democracy. They're not true Democrats, but because they are involved in the process and there's self-aggrandizement within that system, they make certain concessions, but they're not true Democrats. These are the ones that have perverted this system, and we must do something about it. We are intelligent enough to do something about it. We are creative enough to do something about it. And I'm saying that because of the situation that Nigeria faces, the existential adversaries that we face at this time, we must maintain a hiatus. And that's why I appealed to the flag bearers that they should temporize and maintain a peaceful hiatus until we have sorted out the fundamental issues within the constitution. For instance, this is not a federalism, and you know it. So we need to sort all those things out before we can say we want to take another step towards, governance. Because if we don't, we'll be sorry for it. Policy making is not the issue. That's not our problem. It's the fact that we have a conglomerate of people who call themselves politicians that have no ideological connectivity. Their only common denomination, and I say this respectfully, is just to annex wealth. And Nigeria has experienced this burden for a long time. And that is why I'm saying that to everything there is a season and a time to every purpose under the heaven. These are auspicious times that we must begin to look at our own practical reality and to say we cannot proceed on this Sisyphean quest. We must do something. We must do something to rectify these aberrations.
And I'm wondering if there are other ways we can do this, we can achieve this without necessarily upturning the political apple cart, as it were. Because what you are suggesting is a complete upturning of the political apple cart. And a lot of people will not like that.
Definitely politicians would not like that, but patriots would. If you're sick and you have an ailment, you don't deal with the symptomatic realities, you deal with the pathology of that illness. So you can deal with it once and for all. What I'm saying is simply this, that Nigeria has come to a place in our political evolution where we must now begin to examine the reason why we are in this quagmire. Look at the two political parties, the major political parties. PDP, there has been a systematic perforation and discoloration of the PDP umbrella, and it has become hazardous to those who seek to recline under a shadow. Then you take the APC, for instance, that is wielding a broom that is emblematic of sanitization. And in sweeping, they have swept themselves into a conundrum, because the broom itself is not a clinical prophylactic. It doesn't prevent disease. So we need to understand that, yeah, these two great parties are here, but they have missed the mark. And we must now begin to re-examine the parameters under which we coexist in the federal state. And that is what I'm saying. We don't have to wait for a crisis situation or when the situation has deteriorated to such a point that it's irreconcilable. Now is the time. The law was not made, man was not made for the law was made for man. And as intelligent beings, if we recognize that there is a problem, that we have a predicament, as intelligent people, we can sit together and have a dialogue and rectify these aberrations so we can get on with governance. But as it is now, if we say we want to proceed with this, we're just going back to square one. And it's just going to deepen the cleavages that separate us. For instance, it's politicians that brought religion into play. Politicians brought ethnicity. Now, I believe that we must rise beyond the pastiche of religion, the mosaic of ethnicity, to an altitude where these cleavages diminish to mere superficial lacerations in the terrain of national integration. But that's the way, that is the idea. But the politicians who have nothing to offer this country have turned our political exercise into a religious crisis and created a religious provincialism that is neither here nor there. And that is why I'm saying, particularly when it has to do with the House of Assembly, we do not need a legislature. We don't need a legislature. Absolutely unnecessary. Because we can create an apparatus that can help us in the formulation of laws that is not that expensive, that does not constitute such a burden to us, and does not allow the inflow of all kinds of people that are just not patriots. And I want to select my words, so that I do not disrespect anybody. But you know that we're at the point in our political evolution that the truth must be told. And Chris Okotie is here to tell you and to declare to you that this is the only way forward.
Reverend Chris Okotie, you used one expression just a while ago that now is the time for what you are suggesting, except that some people will counter that there's never a time for something that is unconstitutional. There's no place for this kind of arrangement in the constitution. And let me ask you again, how will this national interim government function? Who will be the head?
I already answered.
How are we going to share the responsibility?
Is to get the National Assembly to enact a provision, a law that will be signed by the president to bring us to an interim government. That's all that is necessary. So now, if they're in cahoots with the head of state, if the National Assembly is in cahoots with the presidency, it can easily be done if they are patriots. We don't have to wait until there's civil disobedience or some kind of crisis before we begin to rectify a situation that is overdue for correction. So I'm saying that we created the laws. The Constitution was made by man. We can change whatever is necessary to establish a certain political longevity for our nation. And that's what I'm saying. That the National Assembly is still here, is still extant. All that they need to do, I have been saying that when this conversation is over, I will send a transcript to the president and to the National Assembly so they can see what we're talking about. And as patriots, they can get together and enact the necessary law provision that will bring Nigeria into an interim national government. And it is within that surgical theatre that we can begin to deal with all of the aberrations that have characterized the constitution that is truly not federalist.
Let me ask you again. The constitution already gave the National Assembly its responsibilities and the parameters within which it can operate and the kind of laws it can operate within the present democratic dispensation, because the National Assembly itself is a product of the constitution. Now, are you advocating something something akin to a resort to doctrine of necessity by the National Assembly? Because that is a nebulous expression that is not in the constitution, but which can allow the National Assembly to operate within any space and probably accommodate the kind of things you are suggesting now. Doctrine of necessity.
The technicalities involved are not an issue, because you are dealing with men who have intelligence. When you have a crisis, you don't begin to look at technicalities. What you're thinking about is the survival of a nation. And so all of these technicalities that are supposed to be an encumbrance to us, as far as I'm concerned, are just not relevant to the issue. If we are determined to find a provision in law that would engender a interim government, it will be easy to do, as long as there is the political will and there is the understanding that this is a situation that is very, very needful. What we are seeing in the country today, it's an embarrassment to the entire nation. It's a decimation of our national psyche. All of the primaries and all of the stuff that we witnessed, you saw it was like a catch and catch situation. In fact, it's called a catch as catch can situation. That's the true expression. Catch as catch can, because it was like horse trading. And I think that Nigeria has evolved to a point where we can no longer allow ourselves to become subject of ridicule in the international community. And I'm saying that while we have the time, we can get this done. It can be done very, very easily if the National Assembly and the President are willing. This could be the greatest legacy of President Buhari.
So the main mandate of the National Interim Government would therefore be to fashion out a new constitution, or what?
That would be part of yes. We need to. The legal protocol, the constitution as a legal protocol, is no longer sustainable. It cannot sustain the unity that is necessary among autonomous ethnicities. So we need to do something about the constitution. Very, very important. And it's to redefine what federalism is, because what we are practicing now is really unitary. We must, part of the reason why you have agitations of secession and things like that is because some of the federating units do not feel a sense of belonging. So we have situation of regional xenophobia and things like that. But if we come together and we look at the constitution and allow the people determine for themselves how they want to be governed, how they want to control their resources, how they want to be a part of this federalism, in the manipulation of centrifugal and centripetal forces, how those things will interact and gestate a situation of stability for our nation. And it is very, very needful. And that's what I'm saying, that once we get into the interim government, then all of these things that have been agitated for can now be dealt with one after the other until we come to a place of unity and Nigeria can begin to function again as a cooperative entity.
If we go the direction that you are pointing to us as a man of God, if we follow that direction, aren't we go along this trajectory, aren't we likely to get to a point where this country will be fragmented? Because there are well over 500 ethnic nationalities. There are some ethnic nationalities that today will tell you that they don't want anything about Nigeria. They want out. They want out of the union, and that's the only thing they're bringing to the table. There are those who will tell you that if we want to be part of this union, then you have to give us 100% control over our resources, and then we determine what we contribute to the center. So by the time you begin to pursue those different lines of arguments by the different ethnic nationalities, you may not have one country called Nigeria as we have it today?
I think that is a rather pessimistic view. The concept of a federalism is a unity, is a ganging together of federating units who recognize the need for each other. We must understand that when you are in a federalism, we have a common destiny. We can translate the apparatus of our diversity into, I mean, we can translate the paraphernalia of our diversity into the apparatus of national unity. Because each federating unit is unique, and the uniqueness of each federating unit augments its exemplastic utility, that is its unifying capacity. What has happened is that we've had elements within government who have made it impossible for a true federalism to thrive, and that is why we have the crisis and where people are agitating, for secession and things like that. But if we come together and we are sincere, and we allow that we have, the hands of discouragement, and get people to begin to accept that the fraternity of the Nigerian brotherhood is sustainable. So if we can get people encouraged by the fact that everybody has a voice and everybody is equally important, very persuaded the kind of nation that we've had in the past. I mean, it's not yet Uhuru, but I'm saying that we were actually on the verge of attaining nationhood before all of this imperialistic importation of all manner of governance that I find as an affront to our cultural sensibilities.
So sorry, Reverend, I lost the audio at some point. The last 2 minutes or so, I didn't hear clearly what you said because I was having challenges with the audio. If you could just repeat.
Yes. The same thing we have here. I can hardly hear what you're saying.
I hear you loud and clear now.
Using my attention. But what I'm simply saying is this: a nation is a gathering of people. You have a head of state who becomes what we call the paterfamilias. Is like the father of a great household, and we know the advantages that accrue to large states.
Yes.
Nigeria has always bonded together. We've never had all these cleavages until our politicians began to tamper with our national unity. You see, and I'm saying that if you expunge the legislature from the equation, you stand a better chance of establishing a Nigeria that is viable, where the people decide who their leaders are and what responsibilities accrue to those people. I'm saying that we are desirous of maintaining this corporate existence, but that there are elements within the polity that must be expunged from this contraption that we are practicing at the moment, and that if we deal with those things surgically, dispassionately, then we will have a Nigeria that we all have desired, and there is nothing to fear. The reason why people are afraid of sitting down and discussing our problem, the conundrum or the predicament, is because they recognize that when true solution comes, they will become irrelevant. I said it in the past, our democracy has been hijacked by elitism, by mysticism, and satanism. And once we can find a solution to these aberrations, Nigeria will become a great and mighty nation. And I'm very, very optimistic about that.
All right, I had up to that. We're running out of time because we have a pending outside broadcast event. That's the PDP grand finale in Osun State that we should be joining once they are ready for us. So let's quickly make do with the little time we have. Is there a time limit to the existence of this interim government you are suggesting, sir?
Am I what? I didn't hear that.
Okay. I'm actually getting conflicting reports here, which is that we may just have to find another time to conclude this interview with Reverend Chris Okote, because we should be going to Osun.
PDP ẹ dákun gbogbo ẹni tí ò bá ní nǹkan kan ṣe lórí stage tá a wà yìí àwọn ọ̀gá wa ní kẹ́ ẹ bọ́ọ̀lẹ̀ lẹ́rọ̀ ẹ wá rí stage tó wà ní apá ọ̀tún lọ́hùn-ún ibi tá a ti ṣe.